Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started. Thank you to everybody for coming out. As you can see, we weren't prepared for this big of a crowd because we figured that it was snowy, but we're Nova Scotians, so we don't mind the snow. So before we get started, I just want to advise you of the location of the washrooms, which is against that back wall and to your left. The exits, so we have a ramp right out here. There's another door out there leading to outside, or you can go back out the way you came in through the front. As we meet here together, we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We offer our gratitude to the First Nations for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. We hope that we honor those teachings. We also recognize that this is a sensitive topic and may be triggering for some. So if at any point during the presentation or the presentation of our guest speaker, Jennifer Holloman, if you are needing some time away, just if you want to go out by where the coat racks are, just outside here, and several of us are trained in peer support. We have the purple ribbons, so we'll come out and check on you. We had wanted to record this so that people who were not able to make it today could see it. So we are recording. The focus is definitely going to be on anybody sitting up here at this table. But if for any reason you're very uncomfortable with that, just let us know and we'll make sure that you are not in the video. All right. So Isa Bishop-Gates is the Executive Director of the Women's Place Resource Center, and she would like to say a few words of welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. As we know, the weather is not really cooperating, but we all made it here safely and hope everyone makes it home safely, and we appreciate you coming out very much. This is an important event. We wanted to get everyone together to share the information that our communities so diligently came out and filled out surveys to put together for us to inform us. So as Wendy said, I'm Isa Bishop-Gates, the Executive Director at the Women's Place Resource Center here in Kingston. We are one of 9 women's centers in the province, from Cape Breton down to Yarmouth. And our particular center has existed since 1991. We cover Kings and Annapolis counties and offer support and programs and referrals to all who identify as women. We also collaborate and partner with organizations and agencies and groups as well. Frequently, when working with community, conversations take place between individuals that have received formal training, done continuing education, attended seminars and things like that. So there's a certain perspective from which we work. Not everyone is able to access some of that information, some of those conversations. So this leaves a large part of our communities that are impacted by gender-based violence out of the dialogue that informs awareness, resulting in empathy of others' life experiences, and this can create an imbalance of power and a sense of inequity and sometimes a lack of buy-in as well. Women's centers, transition houses, and other equality-seeking organizations exist to serve and support community, from the grassroots level and through all levels of government, to change attitudes, stereotypes, and biases. We are here to support people where they are at in the present, but also for social change that creates a more harmonious and compassionate world. When just recently our government declared that gender-based violence is an epidemic, as disturbing as this is, the recognition of this reality can no longer be denied. Overwhelming evidence exists, including the headlines of the tragedies we have recently witnessed in this province, to the results of the Mass Casualty Commission's findings, to our local public survey results, for which we have gathered today. Denial is not an option. As difficult as it can be, we have to push forward and engage in conversations. These have to be respectful but honest, from all points of view. Only then can those of us who see a better future of equality and equity have a safe space to implore those who traditionally have held the power and privilege that it's not only our lives, but theirs that will improve if we share the power. Every wave of feminism, civil rights, and other social movements have experienced backlash. This is often tragic, harrowing, and traumatic. Sometimes change happens quickly, but most often it is a slow and steady experience. But change is inevitable. It is the one constant. At the Women's Place Resource Center, we work from a women-centered perspective, and equally important from a feminist perspective. Women-centered does not always mean what benefits women in society. A feminist, women-centered approach means we work with an intent at the forefront of our thoughts to never set precedent, change policy, make decisions that will in any way, at present or in the future, lead to work being carried out on the backs of women. We work from this approach for the elimination of oppression and violence against all women and all people. Thank you very much, and I will turn the floor back over to Wendy.
Thank you. All right, so I will get right into the survey results. We had a wonderful response to the survey, and it's really great to see so many people interested in this. The purpose of the survey was to collect honest information from the community on gender-based violence in the Annapolis Valley. Sometimes, as Isa mentioned, those of us who work in this field, we think we know what people want and what they think and what they need. But we wanted to ask the community what they want and what they need. So our work is going to be done without those basic assumptions. The survey was online for the month of October. There were hard copies available at the MLA offices and in PeopleWorks locations throughout the valley, as well as at the Women's Center. And then there was an online link that was sent out to community organizations, including churches, union offices, and special interest groups. A media release was also done and sent to local and provincial radio and TV stations. I did a presentation to the Kings County Diversity Committee, and I also had a table at the Wolfville Farmers Market in October to promote the survey. So we seem to be gaining a lot of momentum by the end of October, and we decided to continue the survey for another month. And during that month, I had a display table at the Greenwood Mall, and I did a presentation at the Lawrencetown Education Center. In total, we had 265 surveys completed, which is really something for Annapolis and Kings County. So the first 5 questions were designed to get an impression of the public's knowledge and a general attitude towards gender-based violence. It provided possible answers from which people could choose, and the answers were around physical violence, emotional and verbal violence, sexual harassment, same-sex couples, and individuals who identify as transgender. So the first question was, your coworker, who is a woman, comes to work with a black eye and a broken finger. She admits to you that her husband hit her during an argument. Most respondents answered that they would give her some resources. 55 people said that they would tell her to leave him, and 42 people would not say anything because it's none of their business. The second question was, you overhear a couple, a man and a woman, having an argument. The man tells the woman that she's always so stupid. She starts to cry and says she knows she's stupid. He says he doesn't know why he puts up with her, and she disgusts him. He storms out. So in this answer, a fewer number of respondents would give the woman resources than in the physical question above, although it is still the most popular choice. 59 people indicated they would not get involved, it was none of their business, and 55 would tell her to leave. So with emotional and verbal violence, there seems to be a bit more reluctance to get involved. The next question was about a woman being sexually harassed by someone she did not know well. You're in a bar and a man is asking the server, a much younger woman, to go home with him. He is not taking no for an answer and reaches out as she walks by and grabs her arm. What do you do? So again, the most popular answer at 121 responses was to approach the server when it was safe to do so and see if she needed help. A close second in this answer was to tell the man to back off. And a smaller percentage of people would ignore the situation and think it was not their business than in the first two questions. So there does appear to be more of a willingness to get involved between two people who don't seem to know each other well than to intervene in a situation of intimate partner violence. The next question was, you see a same-sex couple holding hands as they walk on a sidewalk in town. They stop and kiss each other and continue to walk. Most respondents said they would be happy for the couple. The second most popular answer was that they would not do or say anything because it's none of their business. 8 respondents said they would give the couple a nasty look, and 6 respondents said they would tell the couple it is not okay for them to kiss in public. And the last of the multiple choice questions was, at work you see someone who looks like they are a man but has the mannerisms of a woman. Someone tells you the person is transgender. So 138 of the respondents would smile at the individual. 112 people would say nothing because it's none of their business. 9 respondents would give the individual a disgusted look, and 5 respondents would put in a complaint with the workplace. So from these first 5 questions, there does seem to be several points that we want to examine a little further. People appear more comfortable getting involved with victims of physical violence rather than emotional or psychological violence. People seem more willing to interject when they see sexual harassment in public rather than interjecting between two people who appear to be in an intimate relationship. And there does not appear to be much variance in acceptance levels of the LGBTQ2S+ community across age, ethnicities, or religions. It appears to be more of a culture in the Annapolis Valley. This is really important when we decide where and to whom this information needs to be provided. So the next part of the survey really gave us kind of the nuts and bolts of what we were looking for. And this asked for written input from respondents rather than a multiple choice answer. A few people chose not to fill in these answers, but 254 people did take the time to actually write things out, which was very appreciated. Any quotes that you see are kept in their original form with context added as needed with brackets. So these questions examine how many people know a victim of gender-based violence, if there is ever a justification for violence, and what resources people know are available. So the first question was, have you ever seen or personally known someone who was a victim of violence because they are a woman or identify as homosexual or transgender? If yes, what did you do and how did you feel about it? So 81% of respondents know someone who has experienced gender-based violence, which is pretty incredible. The national statistic is that 2 out of 3 people know someone who has experienced gender-based violence, so this is very consistent and a little bit over that. 115 of those respondents who said they knew someone had tried to help with the situation. 24 respondents shared that they themselves had been victims of violence. And those who identified themselves as victims and survivors deserve a real special thank you for providing information and feedback to us. Their comments are not included here or in the public report, as we didn't want to chance them being identified without their consent, but we certainly appreciate their feedback. And 19% of respondents did not know anyone who experienced gender-based violence. Some of the comments from people who tried to help the victims of gender-based violence highlighted the frustrations that can happen with not knowing what to expect or what exactly to do. So some of those comments were, I have known someone who experienced violence for these reasons. I offered support and encouraged them to seek professional help. It pissed me off when they didn't accept. They didn't seem to want any help. I tried and got shut down quickly. You see things in bars that are borderline. It's hard to know what to do because you hear that approaching someone can make the matter worse for them. For me, I tried to tell her to run, but all it did was leading her to running away from me. And not everyone who answered our survey thought that it was their place to try to assist someone who is experiencing gender-based violence. These are a few of the comments that were provided. Yes, I've known someone, but it's a two-way street. You don't know the truth, so it's no one's business. I felt it was wrong, but I respected their privacy. I didn't interfere, and I felt that some things are beyond my control. I haven't seen it personally, and I think some people exaggerate their problems. Yes, I knew someone who was a victim, but it didn't bother me. It would be nice to have some education in minding your own business. It's none of my business. People need to mind their own business and take care of their own. And others felt it did not happen or had improved locally. Violence, seems to have gotten better over the years. We're from a small town, and things like that don't really happen here. So the next question asked if violence is ever justified against women, gay men, lesbian women, or transgender individuals. And it's important to note that the vast majority, 217 respondents, said no, it is not justified. A few others, 18 respondents, indicated it might be justified in the cases of self-defense. 21 respondents said that violence may be justified, depending on the actions of the other person. From the comments, it appears that those most at risk of being the victims of violence in the Annapolis Valley are people who are part of the LGBTQ2S+ community. So some of those comments where it depends on their actions, violence might be justified if someone doesn't behave as they're expected to. Violence is justified in some situations when their behavior is inappropriate. People who act out of line are sometimes asking for it, so violence can be justified. You shouldn't be flaunting your sexuality in public as you are looking for danger. Yes, violence is justified if they provoke it. And some of the comments that we got from this question showed a lack of acceptance for the term gender-based violence. There was a lot of confusion, and there was just some hesitation to use that term. And so some of those comments were, it seems to be getting worse. There doesn't seem to be anything I can do. And with it being gender-based violence, all the attention seems to be going to the gay community, taking the emphasis off women. These are very different things, talking about violence against women and violence against the LGBTQ2S+ community. I've had friends who were abused, but none of them were gay or trans. Yes, I've known victims, and it's tragic as they never choose that life. Grouping it with transgender made the choice to face violence is not right. It's hard to justify violence, but you know what you're getting into. And one respondent says simply, transgender women aren't women. So the next question on the survey asked people to write in any resources that would help people who are victims of gender-based violence. And then it asked if there were any resources they would like to see in the Annapolis Valley. 53 respondents indicated they did not know of any resources. 153 said they knew some, and they listed the ones that they knew. And 44 respondents says there needs to be more resources. 3 respondents said there were already too many resources. So approximately 21% of respondents said they did not know any specific resources for victims of gender-based violence in the Valley. And a few of those comments were, we seem to have lots of programs, but naming them off the top of my head is difficult when I think about it. That could point to a problem. Maybe we just need the current programs to be more front and center. There are far too many resources to list, but it's hard to know which ones to recommend in which situation. I would like to see a person that could be called to point people in the right direction. Government programs are out there, but we need a list of where to find them. So there were many resources that were named. The top 4 named were transition houses or shelters for women. There were 101 mentions. Women's centers had 43 mentions. Police or 911 had 33 mentions. And crisis lines or toll-free crisis lines had 25 mentions. But perhaps the most exciting information provided for us was the feedback around specific ideas for new resources. Some suggested new resources, and others suggested ways to increase the capabilities of existing resources. Some of the suggestions were as follows: more education on gender-based violence, particularly in high schools. It was also noted in the comments that peer support is available in high schools. However, students sometimes don't feel comfortable talking about those issues with peers. They felt we also needed more professionals in schools. Addressing the challenges of rural transportation to get to and from appointments. More government funding for programs and services to eliminate wait lists. A few times there was a suggestion of having a navigator position. So it'd be similar to those found in the healthcare system. And it was suggested that the person should be someone with firsthand experience of gender-based violence in order to build trust in the resources that are available. Another suggestion was more culturally sensitive resources, so specific to certain ethnicities and specific to the LGBTQ2S+ community. And resources for family and friends who are trying to help somebody who has experienced gender-based violence. So someone that the family and friends can go to for assistance. So from the results of these 3 questions, there's several points that we want to examine further. Most respondents know someone who has experienced gender-based violence, but not everyone knows what resources are available or how to access them. So they're looking for one central place to get information. There appears to be some tolerance in the Annapolis Valley for violence against the LGBTQ2S+ community. There are some barriers to accessing resources for gender-based violence in the Valley, including transportation and a lack of trust in the ability of resources to keep victims safe. People have suggestions for resources that we definitely need to look at further. And there seems to be some tension around the term gender-based violence. Who does it include? Are programs and organizations able to provide sufficient resources for everyone? And does it include other forms of violence rather than just physical? So we also asked some demographic information just to kind of figure out who was answering the survey and making sure we had a good cross-section of people. They were put in place just to provide more insight. So we looked at age groups, ethnicities, and religious affiliations. Now, ethnicity and religious affiliation had the option of other, and the term other is not intended to lessen the importance of their input, but rather to make them less identifiable in a relatively small community. So the demographics provided with the survey really did not show any significantly different answers within this context. It would appear that the tolerance and acceptance of gender-based violence and the LGBTQ2S+ community is really reflective of the culture in the Annapolis Valley as a whole, rather than to any particular age, ethnicity, or religious affiliation. And that will be, I think, a really important point to bring forward in the next steps of the project. So for age, there was a good variety of ages from people who chose to answer this question. All the demographics were, of course, voluntary. Of those who answered this question, the age ranges were as follows. So 25 respondents were aged 16 to 20. 42 respondents were 21 to 35. 56 were aged 36 to 45. 108 respondents were aged 46 to 65. And 31 respondents were over the age of 65. Of those who answered how they identify their ethnicity, 214 identified as Caucasian, 12 identified as African Nova Scotian, 8 identified as First Nation or Métis, and 22 identified as other. And from those who identified as others, some of the identifications that were named were Acadian, Middle Eastern, Latino American, Mexican, and a combination of different ethnicities. So while it would be wonderful to have more people who identified as an ethnicity other than Caucasian, this cross-section of the population is actually fairly representative of the Annapolis Valley. The final question was if the respondents identified as part of a religious group. Of those who chose to answer this, the results were as follows. 157 said they were not part of a religious organization. 51 said that they considered themselves Protestant. 22 said they were Catholic. And 22 said they were part of an other religious organization, including Jewish, pagan, Islam, spiritual, Quaker, humanist, Jehovah's Witness, and Salvation Army. We needed to be really careful not to overemphasize the importance of the demographic statistics because there were inconsistent numbers from each demographic. So that means that one number might make a really big difference if they were analyzed with each of the primary 8 questions. But it does offer some interesting context to the results. And overall, the demographics show that results came in from a variety of ages, ethnicities, and religious affiliations. And it shows that there does not appear to be a significant difference in attitudes and beliefs across those demographics. So we were going to show the video, but we had just a few technical difficulties. So we do have a video that is available on the Women's Center Facebook account. And it is talking about the definition of gender-based violence. 2 women graciously offered to provide their perspectives on gender-based violence. And then we have Isa sort of offering her summary and really hope for the future around gender-based violence. The video, it's important to note that the video was done by Jessica Bailey. And she has done several different videos with Chrysalis House and with other organizations that are very feminist-based, and she did a wonderful job. And of course, Status of Women Office, who funded the video and the project. So we would like to thank everyone who took the time to fill out the survey and shared it with friends and colleagues. And thank you to everyone here today who are interested in the results. So now comes the hard part, but it's one that we are committed to doing, and that's putting all of that information into action. This is a collaborative project. We needed the public's information to form a basis. And so we want people from the community as well as professionals who serve them to be a part of the next steps. There's a sign-up sheet that will be on the wooden table out there for working groups to take this project further and to make a real difference in the Valley. So if you're interested, even if you're not sure how much you will be available, please sign up and we will definitely find a job for you. We intend to have a group of community members that meets available in the evenings or on weekends outside of normal business hours. And then we will also have a working group of professionals who work in organizations that support gender-based violence victims and survivors. So our plan is next October to have both of these groups come together after meeting for these several months and share the work that everybody has been doing. So I'm sure that the project is not going to be complete by next November, but our work will not be done. And we are committed to moving it forward and improving the safety of our community for everyone. So thank you very much for your interest.